Yo, welcome back to another wonderful episode of NWO Podcast, the Nerd World Order Podcast. The podcast that is just too sweet. It's your boy, Dougie Fresh. Today I got two special guests with me. You want to go and introduce yourselves?
All right, this is Ed Cannell.
And I'm Matt Enton.
All right. So I know you guys might not know this, but these two fellas are the creators of the Invasion From Planet WrestleTopia that we've been reviewing every other week, Jake and I. So I want to take some time and get them on and interview them and get a little bit behind the scenes and see what's how everything came together.
Yeah.
So,
thanks for the reviews, by the way. It's really cool to see you guys walk through this series. It's really fun.
No problem. First off, I appreciate the opportunity. It was my first time reading a wrestling-related comic, so it was pretty dope for me. It was my first time reviewing a comic, so knocked two birds out with one stone. I appreciate that. Appreciate it.
Well, for the uninitiated, Invasion from Planet WrestleTopia is a comic book miniseries that Matt and I created, and we're the writers. We did that with a group of artists. The first half of the series, Dan Scotti did the art, and after that, Kendall Good took over. Colors was Marissa Louise. We had Jason Lewis for an issue, and then ended with Gio Butler. And lettering, we had A Larger World Studios for the first three issues, and then Sal Cipriano took it on home. So we're really fortunate to work with some really talented professional artists. And Invasion from Planet WrestleTopia is about a disgruntled pro wrestler, and he declares himself galactic champion of the universe on live television in order to piss off his promoter. And of course, the TV signal goes out into space and is intercepted by a planet of wrestling aliens who don't take too kindly to this type of boast because they have their own galactic champion. And the story takes off from there.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Rory. That's my man. I like him.
That's great to hear. Yeah.
So how did you come up with the concept for Invasion?
It's actually started out over 10 years ago. We wrote like a whole screenplay first.
Yeah.
And Ed sort of had like the initial sort of spark of an idea. He just said, what if, the planet was invaded by aliens whose entire sort of like civilization centered around pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And, beyond that, like he had the image of like the steel cage around Earth. And I just love that image.
Yeah.
And we kind of, it took off from there. And it's interesting because we wrote that screenplay over a decade ago.
Oh, wow.
But like so many of like the major beats that ended up being in the final product were there sort of right in the first draft we did over 10 years ago.
Yeah, it started with this planet. What if this whole planet was everything about their way of life was wrestling? Like that's how they decide who's president. Like they gotta wrestle for it. And it was like, well, how would they want to invade Earth? Like what? And so I think that's where we got to Rory.
Yeah.
Somebody would have to cut a promo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. But yeah, it's great to hear that you like Rory. He is a flaw, like I said, flawed guy.
Yeah, he's he caught me by surprise, like straight out the gate. That first promo, it got me because like the promos read so well. Like, you guys did a really good job at writing the promos.
Yeah, we did a lot of research. Read through a lot of old wrestling magazines.
Yeah.
part he's there's a lot of different wrestlers that inspired him, and we hear a lot of names when people are want to guess like, oh, who is the inspiration. We've heard Randy Savage, we've heard Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair and all kinds of wrestlers. Superstar Billy Graham is going back a little ways now.
Yeah.
But former I think it was even the WWF at the time.
Yeah.
But he was the guy who I want to say he started that kind of patter. But he was pretty open about how he kind of stole that from Muhammad Ali and brought it to professional wrestling. And Vince McMahon Jr. had gone on the record and saying, if he had been in charge back then, instead of Hulkamania, it might have been Superstar Billy Graham Mania, because he was the first kind of bleach blonde, muscle bound guy to talk about that. And he was a big inspiration for Rory.
I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see
definitely that. Like the rhyming schemes definitely come from Superstar, and then we kind of borrowed Dusty Rhodes Daddies, like peppering in Daddy is a very Dusty Rhodes thing.
Yeah, I will say this just to be fair to Superstar Billy Graham, who said he lifted that from Muhammad, that speech pattern from Muhammad Ali, and so did Dusty Rhodes and a lot of wrestlers. Muhammad Ali apparently went on the record saying that he took a lot of that from a wrestler named Gorgeous George. So it all kind of came full circle, I guess.
Yeah.
So fair play.
Definitely fair play. So I know you said you came up with the concept about a decade ago. Once you figured that you wanted to do a comic book, how long did it take to put together?
Forever.
So Matt and I come from the video game industry, where we're used to working on, that's our day job as video game writers. We work on, and sometimes, projects vary, but video games obviously these days can be very complicated. You can be on teams of hundreds of people, and take years to ship. And it was interesting that 6 comic books that involved maybe a dozen people took about as long. Destiny 2, it was like, I'm exaggerating maybe a little bit. I was looking through our old paperwork, and like I think the first contract we signed with the first artist, Dan Scotti, was dated like late 2016 or something like that. And we finally got the 6th and final issue of the miniseries out August of 2020.
I mean, for context, we did self-publish the first 2 issues before signing with Starburns. But like when you're like small time, sort of like new sort of talent to the industry, like I totally understand. Like we're not the number one priority for some of our, if they get an opportunity to work on a DC title or an Image title, they're going to prioritize that over our little sort of, digital only small run comic. So like there were a lot of sort of, 2-3 month gaps between issues. And
it was hard to keep. It's hard to keep a group of freelancers all together. And we understand, because we're freelancers too in the game industry. So at any given time, we'll be working on 2 or 3, or sometimes even more projects at the same time. And it was like Matt said, sometimes one of our artists would be like, "Hey, I'm really sorry. I had done some work for DC, and they came back to me and said they wanted to, change everything." And you can't tell DC, "I'm sorry, but I got to put WrestleTopia ahead of your of your Vertigo title." You just so it was difficult to keep a group of freelancers together, and I mentioned we had 3 colorists, 2 artists, 2 letterers. It was just people got really busy. Dan Scotti got really busy with a web comic called
Lavender Jack.
Lavender Jack, thank you. He had a really successful web comic, and it just took off after issue 3, and he just and Marissa Louise is very busy, so it was like Matt said, took a lot longer than we thought.
You thought it was going on.
Great art takes time, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, to write the scripts, to figure out the story and write the scripts, it's I don't want to say that it's easy, but it's not like creating 23 pages of art, of paneled art. It's quite the same intense effort. And the first issue, I guess, in our defense, the first issue is 32 pages, and then the issues 2 through 5 are kind of your standard 24 that a lot of comic books are, and then the 6th issue ended up being like 47 pages. So that's a lot of panels.
Yeah.
It's a lot of bang for your buck out there.
Yeah.
If you want to find us on Comixology, we'd be grateful. We self-funded the whole thing, so
oh man,
just trying to break even. We're not being overly ambitious here.
Yeah. So, of all of that, I know you said it felt like it took forever, and working with freelancers wasn't probably the easiest thing to do. But if you had a favorite part of the process as a whole, could you pinpoint one?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, it was just like the first time, like every issue, like when we first received the art, like the initial sort of like rough pencils. It was just like, it was amazing to see these things, like especially since we wrote this as a screenplay, like these things we just sort of like envisioned and we're kind of locked off in our brains on the page, and like and also like get someone as talented as Dan Scotti and Kendall Good like interpreting that vision and sort of making it even better than we could have imagined. Like that was like every time we got like the initial pencils, that was just it was like Christmas morning.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking about the writing process, and I mean, and writing the story and even the scripts was pretty fun, but there was the moment for each issue when all the art sort of came together. Dan Scotti and Kendall Good are really talented artists. We wanted to work with really talented people.
Yeah.
We the artists we hired were really, really good. And I guess there come a time at the end where you'd get the lettering proof with the colored art, and it was all there and all together, and it was just like, oh my god, we made a comic book! Holy crap! It's finished. It's okay, and then of course it takes more time after that for the the design and all these other things to come together, and then more time after that before Comixology actually really releases it.
Yeah.
But there's that moment, you get the lettering proof, and it's all together, and you're just it's a real thing that you brought into the world. Like with with the screenplays, Matt and I have written screenplays before, and we wrote one even. Not nobody wants to read your screenplay.
Yeah.
Comic books are a different thing. It was the goal was to bring this WrestleTopia story to life in a format that people would really dig and want to enjoy.
Yeah.
And that's what and that's what this comic book did for us. Is people can sit down and enjoy it and read it. It wasn't going to be a novel.
Yeah.
We don't have the money to make a movie or a video game or a proper video game, but we could bring it to life in the form of a comic book, and we did. So,
I am enjoing it.
Good.
I have just finished issue 5. I was getting ready to read issue 6.
Cool.
We'll do that after we're done. But no, I'm enjoying it. So I appreciate you guys for bringing it out.
Yeah, we've heard from a lot of people that really enjoy it, and what's gratifying also is we've heard from a lot of comic book fans who've never been wrestling fans and really found it, really enjoyed it. People who hadn't thought about wrestling in years and years really dug it because there's a somewhat of a nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
And then wrestling fans who don't, just don't read comic books that often, also really, really enjoyed it, which I think is easy to do if you're a wrestling fan. But you don't have to be. We're really pleased with the response that it's gotten. It's been very gratifying. We just need to sell a few 100,000 copies. So
It's well deserving. Hopefully, this interview helps out with the.
Well, I think so. The numbers right now. I'm watching the numbers. There's.
But so do you have a favorite character of the whole series? Either of you? If you could choose one.
I would say, like, I for me, like, just because I just loved writing his ridiculous dialogue, I would say Manifest Destiny. Because, like, writing his, like, when he gets on the mic, like, you have to, like, balance him. Like, he has, like, a very unique speech pattern.
Yeah.
And he's always kind of danced on that knife's edge of, like, being, completely impossible to understand.
Yeah.
Like, his, like, very much inspired by the Ultimate Warriors promos.
No, I can see that.
But that character I probably enjoyed writing more than any character sort of in the Invasion from Planet WrestleTopia universe.
Yeah, it's close. I mean, I kind of love them all. But if I had to single out one, I think I'd have to go with Rory, Rock and Roll Rory's Landell's manager, mentor, friend, Don Wong, who is sort of an amalgam of Mr. Fuji and Classy Freddie Blassie, along with a lot of the old sort of classic managers. But I love, his interplay with Rory is great. I love that he does things like, they go to this place and he doesn't want to be there, but he orders he doesn't drink, so he orders a ginger ale, and then they find out that this place they're at is not so great, and everyone desperately wants to leave, but he refuses to leave because he hasn't finished his ginger ale, right? Yeah. That's probably cost like $1.50 or something.
Get his money.
Yeah. He's the only one who can kind of tell Rory, put Rory in his place.
Yeah.
He's great. And, yeah.
So, would you say you have a character that you could, relate to, that you relate to more than any other character in the book?
I can relate to Rory somewhat. I'm not real similar, but there's the self. I think I used to have somewhat of a self-destructive streak, where I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, where you're constantly shooting yourself in the foot. So I could absolutely relate to Rory quite a bit, probably more than most of the other characters in the book.
Okay.
I would say I'm a Rory aspiring to be a Don.
Okay, I can take that. I like that. I like it. So
I haven't acquired the wisdom yet.
On the way there, though, it takes time.
Yeah, exactly.
Time. So, is there another wrestling-related comic you're working on? Do you is that in store? Is that something you guys thought of?
I think we would definitely in the future like to revisit the WrestleTopia verse.
Yeah.
But for the time, like we actually have like a pitch worked up for something not wrestling related.
Yeah.
It's a sort of comedy horror series But, you know, fingers crossed, if we're able to find a publisher for that and do that, like I wouldn't hesitate to kind of come back to this property and sort of expand on it. Like we, you know, Ed and I have had conversations about like doing a series just sort of called WrestleTopia that takes place on the planet WrestleTopia. Because that, you know, like both of us feel like you know, like there's like an infinite amount of stories you could
can
tell.
within WrestleTopia.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's two, I want to say at least two specific one shots that I think would be really fun to do as sort of a postscript to this story arc. I mean, so the story we're finished with the miniseries. It's 6 issues. They're all in Comixology. But if we could, there's a couple like just again epilogue issues or one shots I'd love to do. And as Matt mentioned, you know, there's a lot of other stories we could do with the WrestleTopian universe that maybe involve Rory, maybe don't. But one thought we had with Rory was, well, if you read the comic, I don't want to spoil too much, but if you read the comic, Manifest Destiny, who considers himself the one true galactic champion, figures out that there's people in his inner circle he can't trust so much. And so at the end of the issue, we kind of thought, well, where does that leave Manifest Destiny? Where does that leave him? He's got, you know, he doesn't feel like he has a crew that will watch his back anymore. Yeah. But he ends up, I'll just say this, he and Rory end up changing their views on one another throughout the course of the story. So we kind of thought maybe Manifest Destiny and Rock and Roll Rory Landell, you know, space trucking through the universe, laying the big double neck breaker down on evil.
Yeah.
Far and wide or something like that, you know. But it's just, you know, we'd love to do more. I think, you know, we will. But part of it, of course, I mean, of course, it depends on how, if we can connect to an audience, you know.
Yeah.
Wants to do that, you know, wants these stories. Otherwise, it's just a really expensive hobby.
No, I think the niche that you guys have found with the this wrestling comic now, I think it in the matter of time is going to keep growing because this is a really good comic. I enjoy it. I read comics from time to time, but I've never read a wrestling comic, as I stated before. And this isn't just a wrestling nerd can get into, something that just a wrestling nerd can get into. Is anybody that loves comics. And if you're not really a fan of comics and you just want to read a good story, there's still a good story behind it as well. So I think it's just, you know, the more we can help you guys grow on our end, and hopefully that continue to give you guys the audience that you're looking for.
It's been going, you know what I mean? We're getting there, and I have this belief that we will get there. But it is difficult to be unknown in the comic book industry, and then working with your own sort of creative, your own creation, as opposed to something with a built-in audience. I have a lot of sympathy now for marketing people.
Yeah,
in this
marketing
industry,
is tough.
You understand now, like in the game industry, you know, sometimes you're working on a game and you get these requests from marketing, and everyone rolls their eyes. And now I'm like, oh, I think I kind of get why they're asking for you to add a flamethrower to the game 2 weeks before.
Yeah,
it's because that's
it markets well. People flamethrowers.
Yeah.
So, are you guys big into wrestling? Like, I know we're talking wrestling comics, but are you guys really big into wrestling? Do y'all follow the current product? Have y'all followed the product in a while?
We were both formerly big into wrestling, and you know, like there. And sort of Hogan blew up, So that would have been like the rock and wrestling era.
Yeah.
And I watched it like up through sort of like the next generation era, like the early 90s, where it was kind of, it was kind of at its worst.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
Doink the Clown kind of ruled it.
Early 90s wrestling was tough to watch.
And then I sort of picked it up again during the Attitude Era. So, I mean, like, and I still do kind of like, follow the product in terms of like, I get pro wrestling in my news feed. And so I know what's going on. I'm just not like tuning in to, Monday Night Raw or whatever AEW's got going on. But, like anytime like there's a new, like, let's say like, Dark Side of the Ring, I'm watching that. Like I'm more into sort of like wrestling documentaries than I am like actual wrestling.
Yeah. Dark Side of the Ring. I loved it. Season 3.
Yeah.
Some great stories. What about you, Ed?
Yeah, so I mean, I was obsessed with it as a kid, and in the late 70s, I was like around 7 years old. There wasn't really cable, but growing up in Portland, we had an NWA territory, Pacific Northwest Wrestling.
Yeah.
So every, I think, Saturday night you could watch it and I was hooked. And there would be stars, or there would be big wrestlers that would kind of come and go through the territory. But I was fascinated, and at 7 years old, I mean, I'm thinking I'm hook, line, and sinker. It's real.
Yeah.
There's nothing choreographed. There's nothing scripted. It's all real. I'm obsessed. And not long after, we got cable early on, and were able to watch Superstation WTBS, so Georgia Championship Wrestling, the NWA territory there, which so happened to be the biggest territory for the NWA at the time, precisely because Ric Flair, the world champ, made that his headquarters. So, watching that for 3 hours on Saturday, Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, all those guys. ESPN in their very early days would show some AWA programming, weirdly enough. I don't know how that got how that worked out. And then of course, WWF went national, I think Friday night's main event.
Yeah.
And some other cable programs, and continued to be obsessed with it until about the time, you get kind of older and it gets harder to convince yourself that it's unscripted and unchoreographed, and then kayfabe kind of died.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I thought, all wrestling's terrible now. I'm not one of those people, but it is harder when you get hooked on it and you're 7 years old and you think it's completely, unchoreographed and all that. And then you find out, 7 years later, you kind of,
it pulls the curtain back.
It's hard. Something happens to your heart. It's like
Yeah.
like finding Santa Claus dead in your chimney or something.
Yeah. See, when I was 6 years old, my babysitter, Jason Bailey, told me that it was not real. So I was but it also meant like I was under no illusion it was real.
Yeah.
Like he said it like really like right around the time I started to get into it. And so like my heart wasn't broken by that fact. Like I sort of like knew it, accepted it, and loved it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it was for me. Like I loved it when I was younger. I was into it tough, and I believed everything. I believed it 100%. Like you couldn't tell me that Kane was the Undertaker's brother. Just cold-blooded, just murderers. I believed it all, and then once I found out that everything isn't what they say it is, it kind of made me take a step back for it a little bit. But then as I got older, I start to love it for the art that it is.
Yeah.
They're still performers, and they're still putting all that they have out there in the ring every night. So
it's just
appreciate them in that form instead of trying to make something more of it. It made it a little bit better for me.
It's a hell of a show, and I wanted to end on kind of that positive note too is that I never really, I'd sort of check in on it every once in a while. I largely missed the 90s for the most part.
Yeah.
But I never now, I now hugely appreciate how much joy it gave me as a kid, and then at some point, all that behind the scenes stuff started coming out, right?
Yeah.
Books and shoot interviews, and that was just fascinating to me. To kind of have a new understanding of all these things that you experienced when you were young, and then to understand that there were casting decisions and understand why they happened or whatever is. I still don't get tired of it, so I will watch that stuff. And I'm really wrestling changes all the time, but I'm really glad it still makes so many people happy. And it's great. It's good, and I love Doink the Clown. I think he's awesome. I went. You can't see it now, but I went to one indie show for fun, and it was because it was at a bar in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it was because King Kong.
Dope. That's actually where we're from. We're
well, yeah. I think
podcast. That's dope.
I went to college at Marquette.
Oh, nice.
And I can't remember. It might have been Kelly's Bleachers.
Okay.
Where I might have that wrong, but they were like, "Oh, it's gonna be the Iron Sheik, King Kong Bundy, and Doink the Clown." The Iron Sheik didn't show up, but I have my picture with King Kong Bundy, and Doink was there.
In makeup?
Yeah, he was there. He was talking. We talked to him, and I wish I would have got my picture taken. I was a little bit unsure. I'm like, how do I know this is the real Doink the Clown? Dude,
hey, I mean,
I don't want to pay for
makeup, so
yeah, I don't want $20.
Anyone could put that makeup on.
Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, I thought he was great.
All right, so if you could, since we're talking wrestling, if you could come up with a top 5 of favorite wrestlers.
Oh, top 5.
That's what we do, man. We love lists. We love lists here. Like, that's our thing.
In no particular order?
No particular order. Just
okay,
give me 5.
that I could probably do if you let Ed go first, because I have to.
Well, I'm going to do this from sort of a kid's perspective.
Yeah.
And I think it would be a different answer like now as an adult. But I think as a kid, I was obsessed, not with Dusty Rhodes, and hated Ric Flair. And of course, now we all realize how great Ric Flair was. But I love Dusty Rhodes. Still love him. And some of the local guys that really aren't, I don't know if anybody would really know them, but again, I'm watching our local territory. These are the guys I watch like every weekend, and I was obsessed with Bobby Jaggers, the Hangman. I followed him to his car one night when I was waiting for his autograph. And then I would say Roddy Piper for sure. I'll throw in Playboy Buddy Rose. He was a Portland or Pacific Northwest Wrestling standby. He was always coming through town. He was great. And then I think the last spot, I'll have to give it to a tag team. I'm going to have them share the number 5 spot, the Road Warriors.
Okay, nice.
Blew my mind as a kid. I saw them live when they came to Portland, and they were just mind blowing at the time. When you're 10 or 12 or whatever it was.
When you said tag team, I just knew it was going to be the Road Warriors. It was like, what other tag team would you put up here?
Well, it's funny because we use the Dudleys as our model for, obviously for 3D.
Yeah.
So for me, like definitely Macho Man is up. Like Macho Man is probably my favorite wrestler of all time.
Nice.
Just like his mic work is just so like beautifully bizarre, and he was just such an original.
And to know that was his real voice, that wasn't
that
wasn't him acting or nothing. That was really his voice. That was him doing that. It's all the time, just him like that. It made it so much better because now the character is more humility to it because it's a part of him.
And it wasn't just that, but he could also, like, unlike Hogan, he was actually a good performer in the ring.
Yeah, that elbow drop was amazing.
Yeah. You know, because like I'm definitely like Mike's skills are so important to me. Like you have to put The Rock up there.
Nice.
I mean, like, can you think of anyone who's coined more catchphrases in the history of wrestling more than The Rock?
Yeah.
I'll reach across the ocean and go with for some reason, I don't know why, if it's just her look or just like her just ferocity in the ring. I like am obsessed with Bull Nakano. I don't know if you remember Bull Nakano,
No.
but she wrestled mostly in Japan, but she actually feuded with Alundra Blaze in the WWE during the early 90s. And she had like this like bright blue hair, like combed all the way up, and just like relentless in the ring.
Okay.
And Dusty Rhodes, definitely, you know, from like a Mike Skills perspective.
Yeah.
Like, God, like some of his promos, like Ed and I just refer, like, thank God for YouTube, like, because you're just able to like revisit some of these promos, and his were just like absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Oh God. And then now my number 5 slot.
Big Daddy.
What are you talking about? Kevin Nash? Oh, Big Daddy, the English wrestler. I'll go with another Japanese wrestler for just like pure ring skills, and unfortunately died young. Hayabusa was just amazing, and he actually ended up getting paralyzed performing in the ring. But you know, I always have tended to kind of like, as I said, favor the guys who were great on the mic, but like Hayabusa is one of the few people I can just watch his matches, and they're all in Japanese, so I don't understand what the announcer is saying. But just like absolutely incredible ring performer.
Yeah. Cool. So before we wrap up, I know at the beginning of this, you know, you guys talked about how, you know, you have a background in gaming, and I did a little bit of research, and I saw that, you know, you guys worked on I did a little bit of research. I saw that you guys worked on a couple of titles that popped out in my Leisure Suit Larry. Actually, when I saw that pop up, I was like, "Oh, I had that game for Xbox." And
oh, really?
I'm sorry.
I mean, I enjoyed it until my mom found out I had it. Probably wasn't the best game for me, but
it was a really fun experience.
Yeah,
it's really kind of strange because we were younger, especially Matt was pretty young, and they kind of just.
I was like 23, I think, when I was like fresh out of college when I worked on it. That was the first game I ever did.
They sort of just let us on the writing side just do whatever, and there's definitely some a lot of people really enjoyed it, and there's some fun stuff in there, but it's also like it's some of that stuff, like if I hear, if I were to hear it being played on YouTube, I'd have to leave the room. Like, I don't
it's just, there's stuff. I mean, because the game came out in 2004.
Yeah.
And I think, like the culture has definitely changed.
Definitely.
So there's some things in there that I would definitely sort of cringe at.
Yeah.
But like it was both of our first experience is like professionally writing, and neither of us really had a writing background. So there was a lot of sort of trial by fire going on. Like every week we would have to bring scripts, and all of like the team leads would just be sitting there like, all right, make us laugh, funny boys. And we'd sit and just read our scripts to the lead artist, the lead designer, lead animator, like that, the whole, senior staff.
Yeah.
So it was just like a really good experience from that perspective, because like you develop a thick skin really fast. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you just like, you can't be oversensitive about your work. And if people don't laugh, like it's kind of hard to argue that your
Yeah.
script was so great.
Yeah.
That game taught me that lesson. You know, I think initially it was hard to like put that in perspective. You know, if you have a success, you know, sometimes your head wants to swell, and then you know you don't, you know, you have a piece of writing that just tanks and you're crushed, and you have to get over that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think that's what professional writer, you get over that pretty quick. I think a young writer can be excused for going through those emotions a lot, but I think after after you get some experience, I really expect that to go away. You know, like if you're working with a writer as a professional, and that should, you know, that stuff you need to put that in perspective. You know, you'll not get too high when you succeed and not get too low when you don't, and understand that no matter what happens, you'll get another shot at it. You have to, if you succeeded, great, go do it again. If you if you failed, don't worry about it. You can do this. You've done it before. Now go try again. So it was a great experience, and then we got the experience of working together on an ill-fated sequel. I'll also say, in our defense, I think part of us writing was out of necessity. There wasn't really anybody else to do it.
Yeah.
They made some attempts to get other writers involved, and it just did not work out. So it really, Matt and I had to we had to pull through, and we did. I think a good job. I think we did it in some ways a great job, given what we were asked to do. So
Yeah, I mean, like back then, most studios did not like see a need to have full-time writers on staff.
Yeah.
Now it's totally different. You know, like any sort of, you know, mid-sized to large studio will have, you know, a writer, if not, you know, a team of 5 to 10 writers. But back then, you know, we were designers. You know, that was our primary role, who just happened to write everything for the game.
Yeah. Okay. So I know we kind of drew on a tangent for Leisure Suit Larry, but
No.
I mentioned that for because that was the one title that stood out to me, because I played it before knowing you all. If you had to choose a favorite project that you worked on, you know, of everything that you've ever worked on, what could you choose as your favorite?
ooh, that's also a hard one. Come on, man. We have a top 5. We've worked on.
I mean, like, so,
if you want to give me a top 5, I'll take a top 5.
I guess for me, it's so like Ed and I collaborated on Valiant Hearts,
Yeah,
which was a game for Ubisoft, and that just stands out. It's, you know, it's tough to pick favorites, but like that one is just very special to me, because it was the first time that the two of us were really, you know, we were the funny guys, we were the comedy guys, and it was the first time sort of, you know, we were given the opportunity to write on a dramatic title.
Yeah.
And not just like a dramatic title, but like it's a tearjerker. They literally did someone, and I don't know if it was Ubisoft did it. They did this compilation of people crying at the ending of the game. You can see it. It's up on YouTube. Yeah. So like, just like, you know, the fact that like a major studio like Ubisoft took a chance on us, they, you know, based on our pedigree, which totally would have said like, don't hire these guys for this project. It was just an amazing opportunity to sort of show, you know, that we're kind of more than the, you know, the funny boys, and you know, like I don't know.
So Valiant Hearts would be. I guess I'll have to mention just maybe 3 things, but we have a client we've done a lot of work for called Twisted Pixel Games.
Okay.
And their games are so fun. Comic Jumper, Gunstringer, Logo Cycle, and the reason why working for Twisted Pixel Games is so fun is that their imaginations and were just so crazy. Like they had a lot of artistic freedom, even before and after, before, during, and after being with Microsoft or being independent. But just the games there were just so crazy. Like you could just never do anything like what they were doing at another developer. It was just an absolute blast to work on their stuff. And we'd go there and have meetings, and we would just crack up. And even today, I'll watch some of these cutscenes from those games on YouTube, and I'll laugh at the cutscenes, but then I'll laugh at the comments of the people and the reactions to the cutscenes for like Loco Cycle, saying like, "What is this? Going on?" Motorcycles being given a hamburger. Like what? Love working for Twisted Pixel, and then Matt mentioned Valiant Hearts. It was a real challenge, and I guess from a professional standpoint, we had to take 5 characters, tell each of their stories across 4 years of World War I, tied into real life historical events. So we couldn't make things up or change things around. I mean, this was real history.
Yeah.
And we had to, create the sort of the narrative with the team, the team there in Montpellier, Ubisoft Montpellier, create the sort of narrative flow for all these character stories, and we did it, together as a group. And I never felt quite so, I felt hugely competent when I was done with that. I was like, oh my God, I can do anything with this kind of stuff. And then I gotta mention, I did this also for Ubisoft, a group in Milan. I worked on Rabbids Mario Kingdom Battle, which really, really cool game for the Nintendo Switch. And Mario and Luigi are in it, and of course Mario and Luigi don't talk a lot, but it was still like I was writing cinemas, and I was writing for like Mario and Princess Peach and Luigi, and I was like, how did this happen, man? This is awesome.
Yeah,
it's a great game, and it's a great group, and people love the game so much that was incredibly rewarding. So if I could repeat experiences, it'd be, and I've had a lot of other great experiences and great clients with great people, but those 3 studios projects come to mind for sure.
I feel like I have to give a shout out to Tripwire and Maneater, because Ed helped a little bit out with that project, but yeah, that team just kind of let me free and let me do my own thing, and that could have been dangerous, but it all worked out in the end.
And it's a story about you get to play as a shark that eats people. So what more could you do in the game?
Along the Redneck Riviera, and not just that, but Chris Parnell, narrator for the game. So like just hearing all of our writing in Chris Parnell's voice, just like totally elevated the content.
Yeah.
Some of his so Matt mentioned I helped out just a little bit with that project, but the person that we were working with, he shot me a few voiceover sort of samples of Chris Parnell's work, of his reading our writing, just so I could have a sense of what it sounded like. And I did that thing where I accidentally kind of synced it with my iPhone. So then I'd be like driving around listening to my songs, and a song would play, and then I'd hear Chris Parnell's voice say something like, "If you're in a bar brawl, you can take a swordfish off the wall." And then it would kick into like another song, and it was like having like a super weird disc jockey, like a triple rock block would play, and then you'd hear Chris Parnell just say something about a fish or a whale, and then another rock block, and it was like having the weirdest DJ, like on acid, playing tunes for it. It was fun.
So I appreciate you guys for taking the time out. sitting down and talking to me. This was my first interview, and I think I
Oh,
did well. I mean, you're still here.
Yeah. Well, thank
So,
we appreciate you having us here.
I would have never known it was your first day.
oh, thank
This
you.
particular.
Thank you. Usually at the end of our episodes, we do a little segment we call our NWO's list of approval, where if you have anything you want to recommend for the fans, this is the time to do so.
Well,
Also, while you guys are thinking about that, if you have anything going on in the future, we are readily available to help promote anything else.
well, we're pitching our next thing. It's not WrestleTopia, but we're hopeful we'll have something that we can come back and talk to you about. That would,
Yeah.
I think for now, I'll remind people they can find Invasion from Planet WrestleTopia and Comixology. Our publisher, which is Starburns Industries Press, has a Kickstarter going. It's called Rafael Garcia Henchman. And so you can look that up on Kickstarter if you want, but they've got a really, really, really talented group behind the project. And the Kickstarter is doing well. It's fully funded, but we'd love people to check it out. Matt and I both did a lot of work on a game called Goldbergs Back to the 80s, a free-to-play mobile game based on the sitcom. So check that out. And Matt, can you think of anything else?
No, that's I guess play Warframe, because
Warframe.
yeah, I worked on the last big
Nice.
content
Very cool.
release, Heart of Deimos.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
My best man and one of my good friends are they're really big into Warframe. So
Oh, cool.
really excited to hear that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And say hi to the Usinger Sausage Factory for me.
And all the fine people at Arts Performing Center.
Arts
Yeah.
Is that still there?
Yeah, I'll let them know Ed said hi.
Well, I know this probably isn't very funny, but I was probably like 22 at the time. I was really, I had a few. I threw some change on the stage, and they tooted. My friends still remind me about it to this day. I didn't even remember
Money.
it.
I'm sure somebody took it.
Does that place still exist? Is it still?
I do not believe so.
Yeah, I thought it had closed down.
Yeah, because I know they were opening up another Silk down there.
Okay.
So I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure it closed down.
You can tell it's been a while since I've been to Milwaukee.
Just a little bit. Maybe we can give you a reason to come back.
Yeah. No, I love Milwaukee.
Yeah. So again, thank you all for the opportunity to review your miniseries. Also, thank you for taking the time out for me. I appreciate it. Hopefully, I can have you guys back and talk about whatever new you got coming up.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Stay safe and
you too.
have a great day. The rest of the evening.
All right.
Thank you, Dougie.